The holographic image of Empress Dara dominated the United Earth Council chamber, casting an eerie blue glow across the worried faces of humanity's leaders. Her alien features were both beautiful and terrifying. Silvery skin that rippled with patterns of light, 6 violet eyes arranged in a crescent across her elongated face, and a crown of crystalline structures that seemed to grow directly from her skull. 50 representatives from Earth's nations sat in stunned silence as the alien ruler's message echoed through the chamber. Many had doubted the reports until this moment. Now, the threat was unmistakably real. People of Earth, the Empress spoke, her voice surprisingly melodious despite the translator's mechanical overlay. Your planet has been monitored by the Vec Empire for 3 of your centuries. We have determined that your technological development has reached a concerning threshold. Your species has 1 lunar cycle to surrender control of your system to the Vec Empire. A murmur spread through the chamber. 1 lunar cycle, just 28 days to decide the fate of humanity. Admiral Han stood at the center of the chamber, directly facing the projection. Her uniform bore the insignia of the United Earth Defense Force, a military coalition formed only 15 years ago, when the first alien probe was discovered and decoded. At 53, she had spent over half her life preparing for possible first contact. The small scar across her left cheek twitched slightly, the only sign of emotion on her otherwise composed face. The terms are simple, continued the Empress, oblivious to the fear she inspired. Your leaders will pledge loyalty to the Empire. Your military assets will be surrendered. Your population will continue their lives under our benevolent rule. Resistance is pointless. We have conquered 1,000 worlds. President Kim, a small woman with steel-gray hair and calculating eyes, glanced at Admiral Han. The 2 women had worked closely since the discovery of alien technology in the Arctic ice 7 years ago. That discovery had accelerated Earth's technological development tremendously, though they had kept certain breakthroughs strictly secret. Admiral Han stepped forward. Empress Dara of the Vec Empire, I am Admiral Han of Earth's United Defense Force. We have received your message in terms. She paused, standing straighter. We respectfully decline your offer. Humanity does not surrender. The Empress's 6 eyes blinked in sequence, clearly not expecting this response. Then she laughed, a sound like tinkling crystal that somehow conveyed absolute contempt. How amusing. Your species shows more spirit than most. Nevertheless, your primitive weapons cannot harm our vessels. Your defiance is merely an inconvenience. The alien ruler leaned closer in the projection, her face filling the chamber. Perhaps you misunderstand. This is not a negotiation. When our fleet arrives, you will submit or be eliminated. You have 1 lunar cycle to prepare your surrender documents. With that, the projection vanished, leaving the chamber in shocked silence. President Kim was the first to speak. Clear the room. Security level Alpha. Her voice was calm but firm. Guards moved to escort most representatives out. Only 12 people remained, the Defense Council that had been preparing for this moment since the first alien signals were detected. Admiral Han. The President said once the room was secure, Is Project Thunder ready? A slight smile crossed the Admiral's weathered face. Yes, Madam President. 200 supercarriers, hidden throughout the solar system. The Empress has no idea what she's about to face. General Te, head of the Global Intelligence Division, activated a holographic display showing the solar system. Red dots appeared, indicating detected alien vessels. Their scout ships have been monitoring our standard military channels. They've observed our outdated space stations, our conventional weapon systems. He touched a control, and blue dots appeared throughout the display, hidden in asteroid fields, beneath the ice of Europa, in the clouds of gas giants. But they have no knowledge of Project Thunder. How certain are we that our technology will be effective? Asked Minister Ba, the skeptical head of resource allocation. Admiral Han walked to the display and expanded the image of 1 blue dot. The hologram showed a massive vessel unlike anything publicly known to exist, a supercarrier nearly 2 kilometers long with sleek lines and unusual propulsion systems. The quantum displacement drive works perfectly in all tests. It allows our ships to essentially teleport short distances in battle, appearing and disappearing faster than their targeting systems can lock on. The adaptive shield technology can withstand their energy weapons for extended periods. She looked around the room. We've spent 15 years reverse engineering the technology from their scout ship that crashed in the Arctic. While they think we're still playing with chemical rockets, we've been building a fleet that can match theirs. Defense Minister Park frowned. 200 ships is impressive, but the Vec Empire has thousands. True, replied Admiral Han, but they don't expect any resistance at all. Their fleet is spread thin across their empire. According to our intelligence, they're sending only 50 vessels to accept our surrender, a standard subjugation force. They expect to find a primitive planet with minimal space capability. President Kim studied the display thoughtfully. Their arrogance is our advantage. She turned to face the council. I need your unanimous approval to activate Project Thunder and authorize defensive action. One by one, the 12 members gave their consent. As the last voice confirmed, President Kim nodded to Admiral Han. Proceed with operational preparations. When their fleet arrives expecting our surrender, we'll show them that humanity is not so easily conquered. Admiral Han saluted sharply and moved to a secure communication terminal. Her fingers flew across the interface, sending coded messages to hidden bases across Earth and throughout the solar system. As the council continued discussing strategy, she thought about the crews of those 200 ships, men and women who had trained in secret for years, ready to defend their planet against an enemy that didn't even consider them a threat. The Empress's words echoed in her mind. Your primitive weapons cannot harm our vessels. Admiral Han smiled grimly. The arrogant alien ruler would soon discover just how wrong she was. Humanity had been preparing for this moment since the first hints of alien life reached Earth. 200 supercarriers, equipped with technology the Vec didn't know humans possessed, waited in the shadows. The Empress had given Earth 1 month to prepare its surrender. Instead, humanity would prepare for war. Commander J walked through the massive underground command center, his footsteps echoing on the metal floor. The facility, carved deep beneath the lunar surface, stretched for kilometers in every direction. Hundreds of officers and technicians worked at their stations, their faces lit by the glow of screens and holographic displays. This hidden base, Luna Command, had been humanity's best-kept secret for over a decade. Jay stopped at the central command platform and gazed at the enormous main screen that covered the far wall. It showed a complete map of the solar system, with blue dots marking the positions of Earth's hidden fleet. The dots clustered in strategic locations, nestled within Saturn's rings, hidden in Jupiter's massive storm systems, and scattered throughout the asteroid belt. 15 years of work, he said quietly to himself. All for this moment. Lieutenant Park approached with a tablet in hand. She was young, but had quickly proven herself as one of the most capable officers in the fleet. Her uniform was crisp, her posture perfect, but dark circles under her eyes revealed the stress of recent days. Status report on the carrier groups, Commander J ordered, turning to face her. Lieutenant Park nodded briskly. All 200 vessels report ready, sir. Quantum displacement drives calibrated. Adaptive shield systems at full capacity. Weapon systems are charged and operational. Commander J nodded. And the crews? Ready, sir. They've been in final position for 72 hours. Morale remains high. She hesitated. Though there is some nervousness, most of these systems have never been tested in actual combat. Jay understood their concern. The technology equipping Earth's supercarriers had been developed by reverse engineering the crashed Vec scout ship. The quantum displacement drive allowed ships to essentially teleport short distances, appearing and disappearing faster than enemy targeting systems could lock on. The adaptive shields could analyze incoming energy weapons and adjust to resist them. Both technologies were revolutionary, but untested against the full might of the Vec Empire. "They'll work," Jay said with more confidence than he felt. "They have to." He walked to a smaller display showing footage from Earth's public-facing defense systems, outdated space stations, and conventional weapons platforms that the Vec could easily observe. These decoys were part of the deception, making Earth appear far less advanced than it actually was. "The Empress thinks we're defenseless," Commander Jay said, gesturing toward the primitive defenses. "She has no idea we've been preparing since their scouts first appeared 15 years ago." Around him, the command center hummed with activity. Communications officers maintained constant contact with the hidden fleet. Intelligence analysts monitored Vec communications. Engineers fine-tuned the quantum networks that allowed instant communication across the solar system. A young ensign approached. "Sir, Admiral Han's shuttle has docked. She's on her way down." Minutes later, the command center doors slid open. Admiral Han entered, still wearing the same uniform she'd worn during the confrontation with Empress Dara. The room fell silent as she walked toward the command platform. Despite her small stature, her presence dominated the room. "Report," she said simply. Commander Jay straightened. "All carrier groups are in position and ready, Admiral. The Thunder Network is operational. We can coordinate simultaneous attacks across the entire system." Admiral Han nodded and turned to the main display. A cluster of red dots had appeared near the orbit of Neptune, the approaching Vec fleet. "Their advanced scouts have entered the system," said the chief intelligence officer. "Main fleet formation approximately 6 hours behind them. Consistent with a standard subjugation force. 50 vessels total." Admiral Han studied the display, her expression revealing nothing of her thoughts. "Only 50 ships. Their arrogance is astounding. They believe we're a pre-space civilization with limited orbital capability," Commander Jay said. "According to our intelligence, this is their standard approach for low-resistance planets." A slight smile crossed the Admiral's face. "They're about to learn a painful lesson about underestimating humanity." She turned to address the command center staff. The room fell completely silent. 15 years ago, a Vec scout ship crashed in the Arctic. From that wreckage, we learned we were not alone in the universe, and that advanced civilizations existed that might one day threaten our world. Her voice carried throughout the chamber. Rather than panic, humanity came together. Nations that were once enemies became partners. We kept our discoveries secret. We built this fleet. We prepared. She pointed to the approaching red dots on the display. "The Vec Empire has conquered 1,000 worlds, but they have never faced Earth. They expect us to surrender without a fight. Instead, they will face the most advanced fleet humanity has ever built." The command center remained silent, everyone focused on their commander. "We will not strike first," Admiral Han continued. "We will allow their fleet to enter the inner system. We will let them believe their victory is assured. And then," she paused, her eyes hard, "we will show them that humanity is not so easily conquered." A communications officer called out, "Admiral, we're receiving transmissions from the Vec advance ships. They're broadcasting surrender terms to Earth. They're demanding an answer." "Send our official response," ordered Admiral Han. "Tell them Earth's leaders are discussing their terms and will respond within the time frame they provided." Commander Jay raised an eyebrow. "Buying time." "Exactly." Admiral Han nodded. "Each hour gives our crews more time to prepare, and it reinforces their belief that we pose no threat." She walked to the tactical station and studied the deployment map. "Have carrier groups 3 and 7 adjust their positions. I want them closer to Mars. When the Vec fleet passes the orbit of Mars, that's when we strike." Commander Jay watched as the orders were relayed and 2 clusters of blue dots on the display began to move slightly. The precision of the plan impressed him. For 15 years, humanity had prepared for this moment, developing not just the technology, but the tactics needed to face a technologically superior enemy. "The Vec fleet is approaching Neptune," Admiral Han announced, her voice carrying across the command center. Time to show them humanity isn't as primitive as they believe. As if to punctuate her words, the red dots on the display accelerated, moving deeper into the solar system. The Vec fleet was coming, confident in their superiority, unaware of the trap they were sailing into. In the darkness of space, 200 supercarriers waited silently, their crews ready, their weapons charged. Humanity's secret guardians, preparing to reveal themselves at the perfect moment. The battle for Earth was about to begin. Captain Sun stood on the bridge of the supercarrier Defiance, her hands clasped behind her back as she studied the main view screen. The massive vessel, hidden within the asteroid belt for weeks, maintained complete silence. Passive sensors only, emissions dampened to near zero. Around her, the bridge crew worked with quiet efficiency, their training evident in every precise movement. The view screen showed the approaching Vec Armada as it passed the orbit of Mars. 50 alien vessels in a loose formation, their silver hulls gleaming in the sunlight. Their design was both beautiful and intimidating. Organic curves blended with crystalline structures, unlike anything humans had built before Project Thunder. "Magnify Sector 3, Captain Sun ordered. The image zoomed in on the lead vessel, nearly 5 kilometers long, dwarfing even the largest human supercarrier. Pulsing lights ran along its hull, and strange energy signatures emanated from what appeared to be weapon ports. "That's the Empress's flagship," said Commander Yoon, her first officer. He stood beside her, his face illuminated by the blue glow of the tactical display. "The Eternal Dominion." Captain Sun nodded. "They're not even in combat formation," she observed, noting the Vec ship's relaxed positioning. "Pure arrogance. Can you blame them?" Commander Yoon replied. "They believe they're approaching a primitive planet with minimal orbital defenses. They expect a simple surrender ceremony." Captain Sun studied the alien formation with experienced eyes. In her 20 years of service, she had never faced an actual alien threat, but the simulations and training had been extensive. The Vec's current formation left them vulnerable to a coordinated attack from multiple vectors, a weakness she intended to exploit. "Status of the fleet?" she asked. Lieutenant Kang, the communications officer, looked up from her station. "All carrier groups report ready and in position, Captain. Quantum displacement drives are charged and calibrated. Weapon systems hot. Adaptive shields at maximum capacity. And the Thunder network operating at 100% efficiency. All 200 vessels are synchronized and ready for coordinated strike." Captain Sun turned to Commander Yoon. "Time until the Vec reach optimal engagement range." 3 minutes, Captain." She nodded and touched her command interface. "This is Captain Sun to all Thunder Fleet commanders. Final confirmation of Attack Plan Alpha. Wait for my signal." Acknowledgements came in from the other 199 supercarrier captains hidden throughout the solar system. Humanity's secret armada, built over 15 years, was about to reveal itself. On the view screen, the Vec ships continued their leisurely approach to Earth. Energy readings showed they had weapon systems powered down, shields at minimal levels. They expected no resistance. "All carriers report ready for synchronized jump," Commander Yoon confirmed after checking the fleet status one final time. Captain Sun allowed herself a small smile. "Signal all vessels. Execute Thunder Protocol." Across the solar system, 200 supercarriers activated their quantum displacement drives simultaneously. The revolutionary technology, reverse-engineered from the crashed alien scout ship found in the Arctic, allowed the massive vessels to fold space-time around themselves, disappearing from their hiding places and reappearing in planned positions surrounding the Vec fleet. The Defiance shuddered slightly as reality warped around it. For a brief moment, Captain Sun felt the strange sensation of existing everywhere and nowhere at once. Then, with a flash of blue energy, the supercarrier materialized less than 10 kilometers from the Empress's flagship. On the view screen, she could now see the Vec vessels from multiple angles as the human fleet surrounded them in a three-dimensional enclosure pattern. For a brief moment, nothing happened as the aliens registered the sudden appearance of 200 warships that hadn't been there seconds before. All ships report successful displacement, Lieutenant Kang announced. Formation integrity at 98%. Target VEC propulsion systems and weapons arrays, Captain Sun ordered calmly. Fire when ready. Across the human fleet, targeting computers locked onto the unprepared alien vessels. The element of surprise was complete. The next few seconds would determine the outcome of the battle. Firing, announced the weapons officer. The Defiance shuddered as its main batteries unleashed streams of concentrated energy at the Empress's flagship. Simultaneously, the other 199 human vessels opened fire on their designated targets. The coordinated attack, planned for years, executed with precision, struck the VEC fleet before they could raise shields or power weapons. The view screen showed multiple explosions across the alien vessels as the first salvos hit their unprepared hulls. Critical systems failed, propulsion units ruptured, weapon arrays melted under the concentrated fire. Direct hits on 80% of targets, reported the tactical officer. VEC shields coming online, but too late to prevent initial damage. From the bridge of the Defiance, Captain Sun watched as the VEC fleet scrambled to respond. Their ships began to maneuver erratically, trying to form a defensive posture while firing back with whatever weapons they could bring online. Evasive pattern Delta, she ordered. Maintain fire concentration on primary targets. The Defiance disappeared again, using its quantum drive to jump 2 kilometers to port, avoiding a retaliatory strike from the Empress's flagship. When it reappeared, it unleashed another barrage of weapons fire. Across the battlefield, human ships employed the same tactics: firing, jumping, reappearing, firing again. The VEC, unused to such mobility in combat, struggled to track the constantly shifting human vessels. Inside the Eternal Dominion, Empress Dara stood on her command deck, her 6 eyes wide with shock as reports of devastating damage flooded in. Her silver skin had lost its luminescence, turning ashen with rage and disbelief. Impossible, she hissed as her flagship shuddered under direct hits. How can they have this technology? They are primitives. Her chief military advisor cowered before her. Empress, we've lost 12 vessels already. Their weapons are penetrating our shields, and we cannot track their movements. They appear and disappear at will. Another explosion rocked the flagship as a human supercarrier appeared directly above them, unleashed a devastating barrage, and vanished before they could respond. Retreat, the Empress ordered, her voice filled with fury. Regroup at the outer system. The surviving VEC vessels began desperate maneuvers to break away from the human encirclement. Their once proud formation was now a chaotic scramble for survival. Captain Sun watched the VEC retreat begin. They're running, Commander Yoon observed, unable to keep a note of satisfaction from his voice. Don't celebrate yet, Captain Sun cautioned. Pursue according to plan. Don't let them regroup. She opened a channel to the entire Thunder Fleet. This is Captain Sun. Phase 1 complete. Begin pursuit operations. Carrier Groups 2 and 4 cut off their retreat path. The rest of the fleet continue the attack. As the human supercarriers executed their next coordinated jump, Captain Sun took a moment to absorb what they had accomplished. The supposedly invincible VEC armada was in disarray, running from a species they had dismissed as primitive just days before. The battle for Earth had begun with a devastating human victory, but Captain Sun knew this was only the beginning. The Empress would return with a larger force once she realized the true extent of human capabilities. Still, as she watched the VEC flagship desperately firing in all directions as it fled, Captain Sun allowed herself a moment of satisfaction. Humanity had spent 15 years preparing for this moment, and the Empress's arrogance had played directly into their hands. The Thunder Fleet pursued the retreating aliens, quantum drives flashing as 200 supercarriers continued their relentless attack. The message to the VEC Empire was clear. Humanity would not surrender. Not today. Not ever. The supercarrier Thunder's Edge emerged from quantum displacement near the outer moon of Keth Prime, its massive hull gleaming against the backdrop of the alien planet below. Admiral Hand stood on the bridge, watching as the planet's details became clearer on the main view screen. The world had once been a vibrant garden planet before the Vec Empire stripped it of resources. Now its surface showed the scars of imperial mining operations and industrial complexes. Secure communications established with the Keth resistance, announced Communications Officer Jin, her fingers moving rapidly over her console. Their leader is standing by. The view screen shifted to show an alien face. The Kethians were vaguely insectoid in appearance, with large compound eyes and mandibles that clicked softly as they spoke. This particular Kethian wore battle scars across his chidness face and a makeshift uniform that marked him as a rebellion leader. Admiral Han of Earth, the alien spoke through the translator. I am Commander Roll of the Keth Liberation Front. We have waited centuries for someone to challenge the Empress. Admiral Han nodded respectfully. Commander Roll, Earth stands with your people. The Vec fleet in your system has been destroyed or driven off. We're here to help you secure your independence. The resistance on Keth Prime has agreed to coordinate with our forces, reported Intelligence Officer Choi, who stood beside Admiral Han. They've provided detailed maps of the remaining Vec strongholds on the surface and are ready to launch synchronized ground attacks. The Kethian commander's compound eyes seemed to gleam with an emotion the humans couldn't quite read. For 300 years, my people have lived under Vec rule. We never imagined liberation would come from a species we had never heard of before. Admiral Han turned from the view screen and walked to the central holographic display, where a detailed galactic map showed the current state of the campaign against the Vec Empire. Blue markers indicated human-controlled systems, while red showed remaining Vec strongholds. Yellow markers highlighted worlds where indigenous rebellions had successfully overthrown their Vec overlords with human support. The map was changing daily. What had begun as a defensive action in Earth's solar system had transformed into a galactic liberation campaign. After driving the Vec fleet from the Sol system, humanity had made a bold decision to take the fight directly to the Empire. 3 months, Admiral Han said softly, studying the map. Over 3 months, humanity has liberated 17 worlds and gained valuable allies among the previously subjugated species. Commander Jade joined her at the display. The Empress never expected this. Their entire military doctrine was based on intimidation and overwhelming force against primitive civilizations. They have no strategy for fighting an opponent with equal or superior technology. Admiral Han nodded. The Empress's empire was built on fear and technological suppression, she noted. Once we showed they could be defeated, the whole structure began to collapse. The holographic display updated as new reports came in from across Vec space. On world after world, native species were rising up against their imperial overseers. The Vec, stretched thin trying to maintain control of 1,000 worlds, couldn't contain the wave of rebellions once humanity had proven they were vulnerable. Captain Sun's battle group has sent an update, reported Officer Choi, reviewing a freshly received transmission. They've secured the critical Vec shipyards in the Nara system. Minimal casualties. They've captured intact several advanced vessel prototypes and weapon systems. The view screen changed to show Captain Sun, standing amid the wreckage of what appeared to be a Vec command center. Behind her, human technicians examined alien control systems while armed Marines secured the perimeter. Admiral, Captain Sun greeted. The Nara shipyards are ours. We've taken 17 Vec officers prisoner, including their chief naval architect. He's been surprisingly cooperative once he realized we weren't going to execute him. Admiral Han raised an eyebrow. What have you learned? Their ships are impressive, but their tactics haven't evolved in centuries. Captain Sun reported, a hint of professional disdain in her voice. They never expected to face a real challenge. According to their chief architect, the Empire hasn't fought an equal opponent in over 500 years. They've grown complacent, focusing on intimidation rather than innovation. Admiral Han considered this information. It explained much about the campaign so far. Despite the Vec's technological advantages in some areas, human forces had consistently outmaneuvered them. The quantum displacement drives gave human ships an edge the Vec couldn't counter, and human tactical flexibility proved superior to the rigid Vec command structure. What about the new Vec fleet movements? Admiral Han asked, returning to the galactic display. Commander J manipulated the controls, zooming in on a sector near the core of Vec space. They're consolidating around the throne world. Intelligence suggests the Empress has recalled all loyal forces to make a final stand. Reports are flooding in from across the galaxy of uprising and rebellion. Added Officer Choi, reviewing incoming transmissions. We're receiving requests for assistance from at least 23 different species. The Empress has retreated to her throne world with her remaining loyal forces. Admiral Han studied the strategic situation. The Vec Empire was collapsing faster than anyone had anticipated. What had begun as Earth's defense had evolved into a revolution that spanned hundreds of worlds. Centuries of oppression were ending as planet after planet threw off Vec control. She made her decision. It's time to end this, Admiral Han declared. The Empress must be made to answer for her crimes, and a formal surrender must be secured to prevent further bloodshed. She turned to Communications Officer Jin. Send orders to all carrier groups. They are to secure their current objectives and then proceed immediately to these coordinates. She marked a point on the galactic map, the Vec homeworld, a planet called Veccara Prime. All carrier groups converge on the Vec homeworld, she ordered. We will end this war where it began, at the heart of the Empire. Throughout human-controlled space, 200 supercarriers and their support vessels received the orders. The Thunder Fleet, which had begun as Earth's secret defense, was now the spearhead of a galactic revolution. Ships that had been hidden in Saturn's rings just months before were now liberating worlds thousands of light years from Earth. As the Thunder's Edge prepared to jump to its next objective, Admiral Han looked once more at the Kethian resistance leader still visible on the view screen. Commander Roll, secure your world. In 1 month's time, we will be calling representatives of all free worlds to form a new galactic council, one where no species dominates another. The alien commander's mandibles clicked in what the translator identified as a gesture of profound respect. We will be there, Admiral Han. The people of Keth Prime will never forget that Earth came to our aid when no one else would. Admiral Han nodded and turned away as the transmission ended. The final battle awaited. The Empress, who had so arrogantly demanded Earth's surrender, would soon face the consequences of her miscalculation. The human fleet appeared in the space above Veccara Prime, 200 supercarriers emerging simultaneously from quantum displacement. The Vec homeworld, a jewel of blue oceans and silver cities, hung below them. This was the heart of an empire that had dominated the galaxy for millennia. On the bridge of the flagship Thunder's Edge, Admiral Han watched the final defensive line of Vec warships move to intercept them. Once, such a sight would have been terrifying. Now, after 3 months of warfare, the outcome was no longer in doubt. The Empress is requesting direct communication, reported Officer Jin. Audio and visual. Admiral Han nodded. Put her through. The main view screen changed to show Empress Dara. Her silver skin had lost much of its luster, and the bioluminescent patterns that once danced across her face were dim. The 6 eyes that had once looked upon humanity with contempt now showed something else. Fear. Admiral Han, the Empress began, her voice still carrying a hint of imperial dignity. You have proven your point. There is no need for further bloodshed. I am prepared to discuss terms. Admiral Han studied the alien ruler. My terms are simple, Empress. Unconditional surrender, the dissolution of your empire, freedom for all worlds under your control. The Empress's eyes narrowed. You ask for everything. I ask for justice, Admiral Han replied. You gave Earth 1 month to surrender. We give you 1 hour to decide. After that, we attack. The transmission ended. Admiral Han turned to her officers. "Prepare landing forces. I want to be ready if she refuses." Captain Sun, recently promoted to fleet commander, approached. "She'll accept. The Empress isn't a fool. She knows her empire is finished." "Perhaps," Admiral Han said, "but tyrants rarely surrender power willingly." 58 minutes later, the response came. The Empress would surrender in person. She requested that Admiral Han come to the Imperial Palace to accept the formal capitulation of the Vec Empire. 2 hours later, a small shuttle descended through the atmosphere of Vekara Prime. Admiral Han sat quietly, flanked by Commander J and Captain Sun, as they approached the massive Imperial Palace that dominated the capital city. Outside the shuttle's viewport, the once proud metropolis showed signs of recent conflict. Damaged buildings and streets filled with abandoned vehicles. "The local resistance rose up when our fleet arrived," explained Commander J. "Even the Vec themselves have begun to question the Empress's rule." The shuttle landed on a ceremonial platform extending from the upper levels of the palace. A contingent of human marines in powered armor secured the area as Admiral Han and her officers disembarked. They were met by a group of Vec officials in elaborate ceremonial attire. "The Empress awaits in the throne room," said the lead Vec, bowing slightly. "Please follow me." They walked through corridors of astonishing beauty, crystalline walls that seemed to capture and refract light in impossible ways, floors inlaid with precious metals from 100 worlds, artworks that depicted the rise of the Vec Empire. It was a monument to power that had endured for thousands of years. Until now. The throne room doors, massive structures of some unknown metal, swung open silently. Admiral Han entered first, her footsteps echoing in the vast chamber. At the far end, atop a series of ascending platforms, sat the imperial throne, a structure that seemed to be carved from a single massive crystal. Upon it sat Empress Dara, still wearing her ornate crown, though her posture was no longer that of an absolute ruler. The throne room of the Imperial Palace was silent except for the sound of boot steps as Admiral Han approached the ornate seat where Empress Dara waited. The distance seemed deliberately intimidating, forcing supplicants to walk a long path under the Empress's gaze. But Admiral Han marched forward steadily, her expression calm and resolved. She stopped at the base of the throne platform. Behind her, representatives from 24 species that had been liberated by the human campaign stood in a semicircle. They had been invited to witness this historic moment, the end of the Vec Empire. "Have you come to destroy us completely?" the Empress asked, her once proud voice now subdued. "No," Admiral Han replied firmly. "Humanity doesn't seek vengeance or domination. We want a galaxy where all species can develop without fear." She gestured, and Officer Jin activated a holographic projector. The terms of peace were projected for all to see: the dissolution of the Vec Empire, independence for all conquered worlds, and the establishment of a galactic council where all species would have equal representation. "Your civilization is thousands of years older than ours," Admiral Han said, looking directly at the Empress. "But you stopped evolving. You stopped innovating. You believe your superiority was assured forever." The Empress stood slowly from her throne and descended the steps until she stood face to face with Admiral Han. Despite her diminished status, she still carried herself with imperial dignity. "You humans are remarkable," she said quietly. "In all our history, no species has ever challenged us so effectively. How did creatures with such short lives accomplish in decades what others could not in centuries?" "Because we know our time is limited," Admiral Han answered. "We don't have thousands of years to perfect our civilization. We must move forward, adapt, evolve, or perish." The Empress considered this answer. "And what becomes of me and my people?" "Your people will maintain control of their homeworld and core systems," Admiral Han explained. "As for you, you will represent your people on the council, as an equal, not a ruler. This is your chance to build something better than an empire." This seemed to surprise the Empress. you would trust me with such responsibility. After all that has happened, trust must begin somewhere, Admiral Han replied. The cycle of vengeance and domination ends today. A VEC official approached with a crystalline tablet, their version of a formal document. The peace treaty had been inscribed upon it in the languages of all species present. Your signature will end one era and begin another, Admiral Han said. For a long moment, the Empress stared at the document. 6,000 years of VEC dominance would end with a single gesture. Then, slowly, she extended her six-fingered hand and pressed it against the crystal surface. It glowed briefly, recording her biometric signature and acceptance of the terms. It is done, she said simply. Around the throne room, representatives of the formerly subjugated species watched in amazement. Some wept openly. Others stood in stunned silence. For most, freedom had been only a distant dream for generations. Admiral Han offered her hand to the Empress, a human gesture of agreement. After a moment's hesitation, the alien ruler took it. Today we are enemies, Admiral Han said. Tomorrow, we begin the work of becoming allies. A Kethian representative stepped forward. The first meeting of the Galactic Council will convene in 30 days on neutral territory. All species, regardless of their technological development or military power, will have equal voice. The Empress looked thoughtful. Perhaps there is wisdom in equality I had not considered before. As the formalities concluded, Admiral Han walked to a massive window overlooking the VEC capital. The twin suns of the Vekera system were rising, casting golden light across the silver spires of the city. Symbolically, it could not have been more perfect. Outside the palace, the sun was rising on the VEC homeworld, and on a new era for the galaxy. Just 3 months ago, humanity had faced extinction at the hands of an arrogant empire. Now, because of courage, innovation, and the unwillingness to surrender, they had not only saved themselves but transformed the galaxy. Admiral Han thought about the hidden fleet they had built beneath the surface of Luna, the years of secret preparation, the gamble they had taken in facing a technologically advanced enemy. It had been worth every sacrifice. As representatives of 24 species began discussing the framework of their new alliance, Admiral Han smiled slightly. Humanity's greatest strength had never been its weapons or technology. It had been the unwillingness to accept domination, the drive to forge a better future, and the capacity to offer peace even after victory. The age of empires was over. The age of cooperation had begun.